Hello everyone, once again. Today we are going to talk about sentiment analysis on streaming data using Azure Databricks. So we are going to use Twitter data in this particular session to monitor some hashtag, for example, hashtag Azure. And using that data, we are going to run sentiment analysis on that. And that sentiment analysis will be performed on top of Databricks. And then using that data, we will show you how you can plot a chart on Power BI or how you can create a dashboard on Power BI using that. Okay, so we will start with the session, and this session is very demo specific. So there will be less of theory, and most importantly, you should not be missing even a single point because there are many things to cover in this. And if you miss even a single point, then you may have difficulty in the end while executing the sentiment analysis on streaming data. So you have to be very careful with each and every point that we talk here. So let's begin with the slide. So we are going to cover these many topics here. And when I say topics on section 1, whatever things you see here, that create Event Hub, create Azure Databricks workspace, create a Spark cluster in Azure Databricks, create a Twitter app to access streaming data, attach libraries for Event Hubs and Twitter API, create a Cognitive Services account and retrieve access key. And this entire section that you see are prerequisites. So before jumping to demo part, you need to have all these things created in your Azure subscription. So we'll talk about all these things one by one, that what these Azure resources are used for and how you can create it on Azure. And then later we will jump to section 2, which will be more focused on demo. And you will learn how you are going to use each and every resources on Databricks for sentiment analysis. So we'll start one by one. So you know the very first topic that we see here is create Event Hub. Okay. So we jump to our first slide. And here we see the definition of Event Hub. Azure Event Hubs is a big data streaming platform and event ingestion service capable of receiving and processing millions of events per second. Event Hubs can process and store events, data, or telemetry produced by distributed software and devices. Now, as you can see the definition, and if you understand the definition properly, we are talking about streaming data, right? Ingestion of streaming data. And that's how you can connect that how you, like, why do you need Event Hub here for sentiment analysis? Simple reason, because you are going to read streaming data from Twitter. So for that particular reason, we need to have some streaming. Uh, you need for that you need to have some streaming services created on Azure platform. Now, before going further, Daya is asking one question: is free version of account for sufficient for this? Exactly, Daya. So you can, if you have a free Azure account, this is sufficient. But you need to be very careful when you start doing data ingestion. When you start using Event Hub and you have suppose streamed lot of data, then you may exhaust it. So you will have to be very careful with the amount of data that you stream on Event Hub. So that you have to take care of, otherwise your free account is enough. And for new people who have never used Azure, so I would just like to highlight here that whenever you try to create a new Azure subscription or new Azure account, it gives you the option to create a free account where you get credited of $150 every month. And then accordingly, like using that $150, you can play around with all the resources available on Azure platform. Okay, otherwise you can go with pay as you go, or even other options are available. Right now for this demo, what feature, like which account I'm going to use, that is pay as you go. Okay, so first one, as you saw, we need Event Hubs for streaming data. Right now we are talking about streaming of Twitter data, so we need this resource on Azure. So let me try to bring this here. So this is Azure portal, and you can see all these resources are already created. You can go to resource groups, and as you know, resource groups are actually logical grouping of all the resources that you create for any specific purpose. So this particular session is about Databricks demo. So I am going to focus on this particular resource group which I have created particularly for this particular session. Now, when I go to this resource group, you can see I already have these resources created for this demo because I did not want to waste time in creating all these resources because all these resources will take some time. But anyways, I am going to show you how you can create all these things. So our first topic was Event Hub. So let's try to create Event Hub first. I'll go and click on Add, and I will search for Event Hub. So you can see Event Hubs being popped up from this drop down. I'll click on this, and you can see all the descriptions available here, and you will have the documentation as well. So if you click on this, you will go through the documentation where you will be able to learn more about Event Hubs. You have pricing details. So there for you, it will be helpful if you go through the pricing details, that how the pricing works here, in case if you want to know that how much data exactly you can stream. But still I would suggest, like, when you start streaming the data, and I'll show you the example for that. When you start streaming the data, stop it after a while, and then after that you can go ahead with that. So one question from should we use one event hub for 100 data sources which can stream millions of events per second, or we should have multiple event hubs? So for different sources, you need to have different event hubs, but there'll be a single event hub namespace. So when I'll create this, I'll show you. You will have a single event hub namespace, and inside that you will have to create separate event hubs for different sources. Okay. And it doesn't matter, like, whether it is millions of records or whatever. So event hub will be able to take care of even millions of records. It works exactly similar way like Kafka. The way Kafka is able to handle your millions of record, even event hub will be able to do. The only difference is event hub is a PaaS service, which is platform as a service, and your Kafka is infrastructure as a service. So there are some differences, but moreover you will be able to use event hub. And one more thing, definitely one important topic. When I'll try to create Event Hub, I'll show you Event Hub is Kafka enabled, which means that if you have an existing Kafka cluster and you want to bring it to Azure platform, then you can use Event Hub and just change the endpoint in your existing application, and you will be able to use Event Hub as it is without making even a single change in the application. You just need to change the connection string, you just need to change the endpoint, and entire thing will work as it is the way it used to work in your existing Kafka cluster, on-premise Kafka cluster. And then Daya is asking, do you have topology diagram of what components are being created for a bigger picture? Yes, Daya, I have that, and I will come to that after I cover all the prerequisites. Okay, so let's go and try to create one event hub. So you see when I clicked on this, uh, it is asking me to create a namespace. So this is what I was talking about, that when you try to, when first time you try to create one event hub, it will actually create a event hub namespace. And inside that you can have multiple event hubs. So you can give any name. Maybe I'll give just like ADP, Azure Data Platform, or sorry, ADP Event Hubs Demo. Okay, and this name is available. You can choose pricing tier, and this is important. Like, uh, if you go with basic one, then your event hub might get exhausted very quickly because the amount of data which will start streaming might not be sufficient for this one. So mostly I would recommend to go with standard, where you can have 20 consumer groups and 1,000 broker connections. I'm not going in detail about these things, but definitely you can read about it. So in this particular session, or for this particular session, I have selected standard, and then you can go ahead and create this. So because I already have it created, so I am not going further with that. So let me go back to my event hub. So this is my event hub namespace, you can see, which is created here. And then below you can see there are event hubs. So when I click on this, I already have this event hub created, but let me show you how you can create a new one. So you can just provide a name, and when you click on create, it will be created. Okay, so you can choose like partition count, message retention, like for how many days you want to retain the message. For maximum you can retain it for 7 days, and you can define partition count based on the flow, based on the speed the data is flowing in. So let me close this. Okay, so Kha and Daya are asking some questions. So give me a couple of minutes, Kha and Daya, and then let me finish up this section, and then I will answer your questions. Okay, so let's go to this and check what is happening here. So when I come to this event hub, you can see there are, right now there are no transactions here, as you can see, because it is showing here for the last 1 hour. Maybe if I check for last 12 hours, you can see, because I have tested this event hub for this session, and you can see the spikes. The spikes are showing that like data incoming and outgoing. So that way you can actually check whether your event hub is working correctly or no. Okay, so this is about event hub. So this is the most important thing, or the very first step for this demo, that you need to have an event hub namespace created, and you need to have one event hub created inside that. And then you will have access keys. You have shared access policies where you can create a new one. I already have this one that I have used for the demo, but you can go ahead and create this. Add, you can give a policy name, anything, any name is fine. And then you can give the permission like manage, send, listen, like what permission you want to give. And then you can click on create. So once you will click on create, let me show you this test. When I click on create, it will create a policy, and then it will show you the keys. You can see here. So because I already have one created, so I am not going to go further with this. I will keep it deleted, but I am using this one. So this one also have your name and primary key. Now this is important, and whenever you create this event hub, you need to just make sure that you copy this thing or you save it at some place, because you are going to use it further, like during the demo. So this is the first thing. Now let's come back to the questions that Kha and they are asking. So if we have a single event hub which has many millions events per second, can we use one Azure Data Lake Gen 2 container as a sink? Yes, yes, Kha. So you can use that. So there is no problem in that. You can use that. You can use one sink for millions of record. There is no problem in that. And you actually there is one resource called Stream Analytics where you can give Event Hub as the source, and your destination will be Data Lake Gen 2. So automatically when you create that Stream Analytics job and schedule it, it will start pushing the data from your Event Hub to uh, Data Lake Gen 2. And Daya is asking, how is Event Hub implemented? Is it MQ, topic queue? Yeah, it's like a topic, same thing like the way it works on Kafka. That's why I said it is very much similar to Kafka. The major difference that here is this is a PaaS, like platform as a service, and your Kafka is infrastructure as a service. So that is the main difference. Otherwise, internally it works exactly same as Kafka. Okay, so let's jump back to the demo section. Okay, so this is about Event Hub. Let's move to the next one, which is create Azure Databricks workspace. Now, this is the most important part because without this, you can't run your sentiment analysis. So this is definitely the most important thing. So let's go to Azure portal. And okay, before going to that, let's try to understand what is Azure Databricks first of all. So you can see the definition here that Azure Databricks is an Apache Spark-based analytics platform optimized for the Microsoft Azure Cloud Services platform. Designed with the founders of Apache Spark, Databricks is integrated with Azure to provide one-click setup, streamlined workflows, and an interactive workspace that enables collaboration between data scientists, data engineers, and business analysts. Let's try to understand what this definition is saying. So as per the definition, one thing is clear that this is nothing but Apache Spark cluster. Then how is it different from your normal Spark cluster? The major difference is, again, this is PaaS. This is not infrastructure as a service. This is PaaS, platform as a service. So it becomes very easy for you to create this particular resource. As it is saying that Databricks is integrated with Azure to provide one-click setup. It means you don't have to go through multiple steps to create one particular cluster. In this case, it's just like one-click setup. You go and create on this, you provide all the details, and you click on create, and your Databricks Spark cluster is up and running. Second thing, streamlined workflows. When you say streamlined workflows, it means you can have multiple activities or multiple uh, parts, bits and pieces of code inside one notebook that will go through the flow like step-by-step process. So that way you have a streamlined workflow. Then interactive workspace. And interactive workspace means this has kind of version controlling. So you can actually go back to the previous version and make some changes like grab changes from there, or in case somebody has made any mistake and now suppose it is not working, you can again go back to the previous version of the notebook and start working on that. Okay, so all these features are available in Databricks, and that's how it is beneficial, and that's why it is so in so much of demand right now. Okay, so we will see all those things one by one, that how you can create it with one click, and then how it is streamlined workflows, and then how you can have interactive workspace here. Okay, let's go back to Azure portal. So again, I'm coming back to my resource group, and you can see I already have Databricks cluster created here. Okay, but what I'll do, I'll go ahead and create a new one. So again, I clicked on plus, and I will search for Databricks. And the first one itself, you can see it's Azure Databricks. Just click on this and click on create. Now, when you try to create this Databricks cluster, you will see that it is asking for very few information. It is not asking you like hundreds of information. Very simple. First of all, subscription that you can select. Right now, I only have one, so it is showing me by default. It is selected that one. Resource group, you can select the resource group that you are using for this particular session, for this particular demo. I'm going to use this resource group, which is rg-eus-databricks-demo. Now, instance details, that is workspace name. So first you will provide your workspace name. So you can give any meaningful name. Maybe I'll give ADP, or no, I'll give Databricks. I'll give East US and then ADP demo. You can select any region, but remember one thing which is very important here, that there is a limitation for creating a cluster under any subscription or under any region. Right now that limitation is 20 cores, and you cannot go beyond that. If you have to go, then if you have to go beyond 20 cores, then you will have to raise a request to Microsoft team. They will review your condition, and then based on that they will allow, or they will add more cores to your subscription. But by default you will have only 20 cores, and you will not be able to use anything more than that under your subscription. And that limitation is there even on a particular region. So be very careful with the region that you select or the cluster that you select. So right now we are not going to select any cluster here. We are just going to go ahead with our normal Databricks namespace. Okay, so we are not providing anything else. And then you have, okay, here we have filled all the details. Next one is networking. So deploy Azure Databricks workspace in your own virtual network. So if you have your own virtual network, you can deploy it there. Right now I don't have any, so I have selected no. So you can click on review plus create, and then that's it. It will be done. So your work is done. Your workspace is created right now. Okay. So let's cancel this. Normally, if I try to create this, this will take some time, and that will spoil at least like maybe 5 minutes of our demo. So that's why I kept all these things created in advance. Once your Databricks workspace is created, you will be able to see this. Okay, you will be able to see this screen, and then you can click on launch workspace. But before that, you can see all these details below, that you have getting started, will tell you like will guide you with all the steps how you can start working on Databricks. So basically guide how to use Databricks. Documentation, all like conceptual things and everything related to Databricks you'll find in documentation. Then you have several things here that you can try to explore. Okay, but right now you can just go ahead and create on launch workspace. So once you click on this, you will come to this page. So this is actually your Azure Databricks workspace created. And right now, because I have couple of things already created here for the demo, so you may see, for example, like in workspace, you are seeing these things. Then you have clusters. Right now, you can see I have a cluster created here and running. But when you come for the first time, when you come on this page for the first time, then it will be blank and you will not have anything else here. Okay. So let's move to the next slide. But before going to that, let's check the question. So if Event Hub is powered by Kafka, so first thing, the Event Hub is not powered by Kafka. It is a similar kind of resource. It is not at all powered by Kafka. It is a completely different resource. It works like Kafka and it enables you to keep your application up and running as your application was running on Kafka cluster without making any changes in your code. You just have to make change in the endpoint. So Azure Databricks is definitely powered by Apache Spark. And okay, so you are asking what is reasoning of using multiple tools for this solution. So Databricks is just Spark, and it is not like it is not used for streaming data. For streaming data, we normally go with Kafka cluster or Event Hub, so that like you will have various topics created. So there is a very a very different topic of discussion about Kafka cluster. Okay, that I don't want to bring it here because that's a very different topic and that itself requires like more than 2 hours time just to cover the overview. But yeah, Kafka is a different service which is used for streaming. Spark we are using here for ML services so that we can use ML services with Spark cluster. And then we will show you how we use even Spark SQL here. So there are various APIs, various Spark APIs that we are going to use here. And we need another one like cognitive services for this solution that is required because we are going to use sentiment analysis. We are going to perform sentiment analysis using text search, right? So those things are there. So because of that, we need to use multiple resources to achieve this solution. Okay, hope I answered your question there. Um, okay, so let's move to next slide, which is create a Spark cluster in Azure Databricks. Now, because we already have created Databricks workspace, without creating anything inside, as I showed you, that uh, it will be blank. You will not have anything else there. You will not have clusters, you will not have notebooks, you will not have anything. So we will have to create cluster. Okay, now you see here like what is Apache Spark and Azure Databricks. That Azure Databricks builds on capabilities of Spark by providing a zero management cloud platform that includes fully managed Spark clusters, an interactive workspace for exploration and visualization, a platform for powering your favorite Spark-based application. So it's the same thing that I told you already, that this one is PaaS, where you don't need to manage it, manage this resource yourself. Everything will be managed by Azure platform. So you are just running the cluster and then you are working on your code. You are not at all worried about the infrastructure underneath. And this is the plus point of PaaS, platform as a service. Okay. So we are going to the next step. So now we are on third step for this particular topic, right? First step was Event Hub that we have created. Second one was Azure Databricks Workspace that we have created. And third one is create a Spark cluster in Azure Databricks. So let's go to Databricks and try to create a new cluster. So I already have it here. Meanwhile, let me try to just start it. So you can just go and click on create cluster, and then it will pop up this window. In that window, you can just give one cluster name, Databricks Spark demo. Now you have clustered mode where you have high concurrency and standard. So based on your requirement, you can choose whichever you want. Right now I am going with standard. It is asking a pool. Do you have any pool right now? I don't have. So let's not get into that right now. Then you have Databricks runtime version, and this thing keeps updating. So uh, sometimes when suppose you are working today on one particular runtime environment, and tomorrow when you come back, then suddenly you will see that you don't find that runtime or it has changed, some new versions have come. So there is nothing to be worried about. The new version definitely supports the previous version most of the time, and your existing code will work perfectly fine even with the newer version. So right now you can go ahead with that. So there is no problem there. And then yeah, you can see this runtime version supports only Python 3. So sometimes you just need to be careful with that whether you are going to run Python 3 notebook or Python 2 notebook. So that you have to be careful about. Okay. And then next one you have enable auto scaling. Now this is a very important feature for Azure Databricks, as you can see here. So you have the option to select minimum workers and maximum workers for worker type here, right? And then Databricks will decide that how many workers it has to select if you are going with enable auto scaling. So you define min and max, but you don't define exactly how many workers or how many clusters you are going to need. That will be defined automatically by Databricks. So that's why this feature is very important when you enable auto scaling. Okay, so you can enable this, then you can rest assured about the performance and everything else when you have defined the minimum and maximum worker nodes. Another important feature is terminate after 120 minutes of inactivity. By default it shows 120 minutes, but you can go ahead and select anything. Maybe I can go ahead and select 30 minutes. So if the cluster will be inactive for 30 minutes, automatically it will become inactive, so it will start terminating. So if you remember, I just started my previous cluster which was already created because this was terminated. It was not in use, so automatically it got terminated. Okay, so we have to do that. Okay, Kai is asking, can we set policy to allow only few types of work types? Few type of work types means worker type. Definitely you have some options here, and you can select any of this the way you want. There are memory optimized, then there are storage optimized, compute optimized, then GPU accelerated. Then based on your requirement, you can select worker type, and same option goes with even driver type. So here also you have all these options, and then you can actually uh, just define like same as worker. So it will keep the same. Can we set policy? Okay, Kai is asking another question. Can we set policy to allow only few types of work types? Oh, sorry, that is the same question. Sorry, my mistake. So you can actually select a particular worker type and driver type for your application. So it depends on your requirement. And if you have already worked with Databricks, then there is no problem. You can go ahead with this, and so you will already have a better understanding that which one you are going to need. And if you're new to this, then go with standard one. And then later when you get better understanding that which one you will need, whether you require highly memory optimized cluster, then based on that you can go ahead and select. So it depends on you, and there is nothing to be worried about that initially you created this one, later you can't change it. Any point of time, even if you have created it, you can go ahead and edit in this cluster and you can make the changes. So there is nothing to be worried about. So initially you can just go ahead with standard one. One more thing that I will show you, that it is saying that this account may not have enough CPU. So this is what I was telling about, that estimated available 10 and requested 36. Okay, because I already have a cluster running, so it will exhaust the remaining one. And if you are going with this particular configuration, it requires 36 cores, and which is not available for my subscription. So it will not allow me to create another one. Okay, but if you're creating for the first time, You can go ahead with that, and or you can reduce it also, and then it will be fine. Okay, so Daya is asking two questions. So do terminated cluster come alive by themselves if a request comes to the cluster? Yes, Daya. So if there is a request, and if suppose you have scheduled a job at any particular time, then at that particular time the terminated cluster will become alive, and then again it will start running. And again after certain time, like whatever time you have decided for inactivity, after that particular time, again it will go to terminate state. And if you don't have any job schedule, then you may need to go and start the cluster manually. Okay, so let's go ahead with this. This is terminated. Okay, now it is up and running, this cluster for me. So this was terminated, and because I don't have any scheduled jobs, so you can see I had to start it. You can restart from here, you can terminate from here, you can delete it from here. So all these options are available, and as I told you, you have edit option as well. So you can click on edit, and then you can make the changes in the worker type, driver type, or any change that you want to make. Okay, and keep this thing in mind that for this particular session I am going to use Python version 3. So don't make this mistake, because if you make it Python version 2, it might not work for you. Okay, so right now you see it will show notebooks 0, although I have notebooks created, but still it is showing notebook 0, and I will come to that. Let's go to workspace, and I have these two notebooks created. Click on this, and now you can see you can connect to this. So it will take some time to connect. Let it connect, but meanwhile we'll jump to our demo. Sorry, jump to our slides. Okay, so far we are good. We have created our event hub. We have created our Databricks workspace. Now we have our cluster up and running. Now next one is Twitter app. Now this is again a very important thing. If you have never worked with Twitter application, then this could be tricky. Okay, and I'm going to show you step-by-step process that how you can do this. But let's see. So you can see that your Twitter developer account application has been approved. Now this is not something comes very quickly. This has to go through a lot of process. So let's see what that process is. So there is something called Twitter developer account. Let's click on this. So you see this, there is a developer.twitter.com, and if you have worked on this earlier, you have a Twitter developer account, it is good, because you will have to not go through all the steps that I'm going to guide you right now. You can skip all those steps, and then you can follow me again with the next steps. But if you are new to this, then you have to follow certain steps. So when you click on this, you can click on apps, and then you can see here I have created one app, but you can go ahead and create a new app. Okay, and then again it will ask you for these details, so you can fill in all these details, then your app will be created. So okay, so you don't have to do anything, your app will be created. Once your app will be created here, you can go to details, and after this you will come to keys and tokens. So this is important part. Okay, these keys and tokens you have to generate and keep a copy of it, because you are going to use these keys in Databricks while running sentiment analysis. Okay, so let me come back to this part again, because this is important. So first you come to twitter.com. From there you try to create one app. When you click on this app, it will ask you certain details. You fill in those details, and then after that you will get one email to confirm your email ID. Once you confirm that, your developer account will be activated. Once your account is activated, you will come to this particular page, and you will see that your app is already created. Once you click on this apps, you will see your app is already created, and after that you will go to details section. In details section, you need to go to keys and tokens, and you have to make a copy of all these keys and tokens. So these are API key, API secret key, and these are access token and access token secret. So these things are generated, you can regenerate it, but whenever you regenerate, make sure that you make these changes again in the application that you are going to use, basically in Databricks cluster. Okay, so this is a very important thing. If you have never done this, then it might look little tricky, but it's like easy step if you follow everything properly. Okay, so let's go to the slide. So this is what I was showing you step by step. That first step is this, then you create one app and then it will ask you for the details, and then fourth step is this, that you go to generate the keys for you. So at this stage, now you have Event Hub, Databricks, Spark Cluster, Twitter. Now we are just 2 steps away from running our sentiment analysis on Databricks. Okay, before going to that, the AI is asking one question: what is the purpose of workspace and purpose of cluster on this solution? Okay, so workspace is actually a grouping of all the resources, or basically a grouping of the resources that you are creating for, which is related to Databricks, right? So cluster is, you can consider cluster as one like virtual machine, which is not exactly, but you can consider cluster as a virtual machine. Then you have notebook there. So basically that you can consider notebook as IDE, where you are writing your code, and then you have your scheduler, right? So all those things have been bundled together in workspace. Okay, if it is not bundled, then you will again struggle to search for like where to create, where I can write code which will use Databricks, and where is the cluster. So this will be lost, right? So they have bundled it together to bring it uh, under one platform called Databricks Workspace. So that's why we need Workspace, and Databricks cluster is actually nothing but your Spark cluster running on Azure. Okay, so let's move to the next one. Okay, so next one is attach libraries for event hubs and Twitter APIs. Now this is important. Without attaching these libraries, you will not be able to run your application. So mainly there are two libraries, nothing much. One library is for Event Hub, which will be used for connecting through Event Hub, and another one is for Twitter. So these two libraries you have to install. So let's go to Databricks again. Let's go to cluster. And here, when you click on cluster, you come to this page, and then you can go to libraries. And here you can see both the libraries are installed. So what you need to do to install these two, click on install new, go to Maven and search for the packages. And again here from Spark packages, change it to Maven Central and search for Azure Event Hubs. Okay, so you can see this one, com.microsoft.com is group ID, and this is the artifact ID. So you have to choose this one, and you have to be careful sometimes with the release. Okay, so you just need to check which one I am using, and I have mentioned even in the slide here. So you see which one I have mentioned here. So you have to go and select for this one. In case if you don't find this, then go with the higher version, but don't go with the version lower than this. So if it is 2.3.10, if you don't find this, go with 2.3.14. Okay, but don't go for below, like lower version than that. And same thing with Twitter. So let's go with this again and try to copy this. Oh, sorry. Okay, so you see here it is showing 2.12. So this is the most recent one. So you can go ahead and select this one. It will work fine. Okay, so this is one. So once you will select this, these coordinates will come here, and then you can click on install. This is simple. Same thing you have to do with Twitter. Okay, so I have used another library. This also works, and even the other library that I have mentioned in the slide, this also works. So you can go with either. Okay, so you will install both the libraries and you are set. So now you have your Databricks workspace, you have your cluster, and you have your libraries installed. Okay, so next one. And now this is the last prerequisite before we jump to the demo part. So this is cognitive services. And we need cognitive services because we are going to run sentiment analysis, right? So Azure Cognitive Services are APIs, SDKs, and services available to help developers build intelligent applications without having direct AI or data science skills or knowledge. So for that, you don't actually need to have knowledge to build your algorithm. There are certain algorithms which are already built for us. We can just go ahead and leverage those uh, algorithms for our applications. Okay, so Azure Cognitive Services enable developers to easily add cognitive features into their applications. And this is what we are going to do here, that we are going to add one of the cognitive features into our application. The goal of Azure Cognitive Services is to help developers create applications that can see, hear, speak, understand, and even begin to reason. Okay, so there are different types of cognitive services, which are like vision, speech, language, web search, and decision. So all these types of cognitive services are already available, and these are like already uh, built-in algorithms which are already made, compiled algorithms. You don't have to write the algorithm yourself. You can leverage all those algorithms for running your application. Okay, so let's go to Azure portal to see how you can create cognitive services. So again, I come here. I already have cognitive services installed, like added here, but let's try to create a new one. Cognitive services. So click on this, go to create. Again, this is simple. You can just provide any name. I am giving ADP Coxer demo. Okay, East US I am selecting. You can choose pricing tier. Okay, this is related to, okay, this pricing tier is related to region. So be careful while selecting the region. Like you saw, like when I selected East US, it did not, it shows me only S0. And for some regions, you will see even other pricing tiers. So you can check like all the pricing details when you click on this. But right now you can go ahead with S0. You don't need anything more than that for this demo. Resource group, and then I confirm I understand the notice below. So you can read all the details, all these notice before going to create this. Okay, and so that's it. Just to create a cognitive service, this is what you need to do. Very simple. Just provide the details, simple details, name, pricing tier, and resource group, and click on create. Your cognitive services will be up and running. Simple. Now I'll go back again to my cognitive services because I already have it created. Now let's go to overview. You will come to this page where you will see your endpoint. This is your cognitive services, and you can see here keys, and you can go to keys and endpoints also to access like endpoint and key one. Now you have to make a note of these two things when you before going to your Databricks cluster, because we are going to again reuse these keys in our application. So let's try to recap everything once again, that what all things we need. We created Event Hub, and we need Event Hub name and keys. So make sure that you have already copied name and keys. Then you have Databricks workspace that you have already created, nothing else to do there. You have Spark cluster in Azure Databricks that also you have already created. You don't have to do anything else there. Then you have Twitter app, and uh, you need to make sure that you have already copied the keys, right? There were certain keys, so you have to make sure that you have already copied all those keys, because we are going to use all those keys in the application. Then attach libraries we have already done, and last one is cognitive services and retrieve access keys. So again, you have to make a note of all the access keys that you have uh, you have generated during this entire process. And that's it. We are done with our prerequisites, and next we can jump to the demo section. Now, before jumping to demo section, I would like to take a short break for 5 minutes, and we will be back in 5 minutes. After that, first I will talk about this architecture, that how we are going to leverage this, and then we will move to demo. Hello everyone, I am back. So hope everyone else is also back. So Caroline is asking, can we see the recordings afterward, including the last week? Your sessions are so informative. Thank you very much. Thanks, Caroline, for the feedback. And all the videos are made available on azuredataplatform.com. So you can see the previous recordings are already available, including the PDF on azuredataplatform.com. Even this recording will be made available in a couple of days. So you can see everything here. So you can go to azuredataplatform.com, click on videos, and then you will find here, this is video related to Azure Data Factory, and you can download the PDF. And this is the first video which was related to Azure SQL database, and here is the PDF. So I'll upload even this session's video here itself, so you can go and check the video here. So we are going to talk about architecture in this particular slide before jumping to the demo section, because we need to understand how all these resources are connected and why we are using all these resources first of all. So the very first thing, we need to have Twitter developer account. Why? Because we are going to read Twitter data, and we cannot read Twitter data without having a Twitter developer account, because that's how you will be able to connect Twitter API to your applications. So that is the first thing that you can see here. Next, you can see this entire big section is Azure Databricks, which is Azure Databricks Workspace. Now here you have Producer Notebook, and then you have Consumer Notebook, Spark on Databricks. These three things are available on Azure Databricks Workspace. So this is nothing but Databricks cluster that we talk about, and these two are notebooks. Then why they are being called Producer Notebook and Consumer Notebook? So this notebook will be used to read the data or to send the data from Twitter to Event Hub. That's why this is called Producer, because they are going to produce the events or produce the data in Azure environment from Twitter. This particular notebook will consume this data from Event Hub to perform all the sentiment analysis on Databricks cluster. Okay, and you can perform sentiment analysis using cognitive services, because you are not going to write your own algorithm, or you are not going to create your own model right now in this demo, right? Although you have the flexibility to write your own algorithm, create your own algorithm on this notebook itself, and you can leverage the data the way you want. But in this particular session, in this particular demo, we are going to leverage the sentiment analysis. For that, we have created cognitive services. So now I think we are clear that why we have all these resources available here, why we are using these many resources for this. Twitter for the data, notebooks for running the applications, like Producer Notebook for sending the data to Event Hub, Consumer Notebook for reading the data from Event Hub and performing sentiment analysis. We are using Event Hub for streaming data, and then we have Spark cluster, and we have cognitive services. Okay, so we are good with this. We have all the resources created, we have all the prerequisites, and we know the architecture now. So without delaying, let's jump back to the demo section now, and we come to the cluster. Now we have the cluster here, and then we go to notebooks. So if you remember, so far we have not created any notebook. I have created it here, but right now you have not created. So how you can create a notebook? That you go to Workspace, click on this down arrow and click on Create, and then go to Notebook, select that. You can give any particular name. To keep it simple, you can give it a name like Send Tweets to Event Hub. This is what I have used for this demo. So you can give this name. For this particular demo, I have used Scala language. I'm not using Python or R, so I'm using Scala right now. And in case if you have multiple clusters created on a one Databricks workspace, so make sure that you select the correct one. Right now I have only one cluster created here, so that's why it is showing me only one. But if you have multiple, so make sure you select a correct one. Once you are done with that, you will see that one new notebook has been created, and this will be blank notebook. You will not have any information that you see here. It will be completely blank notebook. So how did I come to this? How did I create this particular code? It is a simple way that there is one URL. Let me paste that URL here. So you see this entire session is based on this URL, like sentiment analysis on streaming data using Azure Databricks. Now you must be wondering that if it's already there, step by step everything, then why do you need this session? One thing, it's easier if someone is walking you through step by step rather than following these things, because you might miss out some things. Another thing, there are some problems with the code that they have used here, and I modified that code by going through some other articles and I have fixed it. That is second reason. Third reason, I am going to show you further steps that how you can leverage this particular sentiment analysis data on Power BI. So that is not covered in this particular demo. So if you go to the screen, you will see that send tweets to Event Hub. And this particular code is already available. You just have to change these names. Now you know what these names are. These names are actually your Event Hub. So you have to give Event Hub namespace. Let's go back to Azure portal and we will see where those things, you can find those things. So this is my Event Hub namespace. This entire thing, Event Hub EUS Databricks demo. This is my namespace. Okay. Next one, it is asking for Event Hub name. So remember, in this Event Hub namespace, we created Event Hub, right? And this is my Event Hub. So click on that. Now, this is my Event Hub name. This is the second information that it is asking for. Third one is SAS key name. For that, you have to go to shared access policy and you have to click on add. Okay, you will give a policy name, that is your SAS policy name. In this particular case, demo SAS is my policy name, right? So let's come back to this. You have your key name and then you have key, and this is the key. You can use primary key or secondary key, doesn't matter. Okay, so now you have all the information related to Event Hub. Next thing, you remember, like, what is this code for? Send tweets to Event Hub. Now we have configured Event Hub, but how this notebook will know that where to pick up the data from, like where is the source? So Twitter is the source, so you have to provide Twitter information. So again, you will come back here and you will see Twitter consumer key, consumer secret, OAuth access token, OAuth token secret. And where we will find this? We will find this information here in our Twitter developer account. You remember we went to apps. So if you go here, you can click on apps, then you come to this section, and then you can click on keys and tokens. Then you see this is API key, this is API secret key, right? So you got these two information. So this is consumer key, this is secret key. You have these two information. Third information is like access token and token secret, right? So this is access token and token secret. So you can fill in all these information, and you are done. Now you have provided the information for Twitter, you have provided the information for Event Hub. So that's it. You don't need to do anything else here, right? One more thing that you need to understand when you go through this code, I am not sure how much comfortable you guys are with Scala, but there are few simple things that you need to understand. There is one if statement here, mm, here, right? So you see if data source is Twitter, then it will go through this entire process. It will go and try to fetch Twitter data. Otherwise, it will not do that. So keep in mind, it is saying if data source is Twitter, then it will go through the entire process. Then only it will try to access the data from Twitter. Another thing, it is giving else, sorry, else if data source is test. If your data source is test, then it will pick the data from the test data, and here is your test data. This is the one. And this test data can be anything that you want. That is perfectly fine. So you can decide anything. And this is the place where you decide where you want just to run test data or whether you want Twitter data. So in your code, if your data source is test, then it will run the application against this particular data. So you can see only three. One second. Yeah. So it will run only through these records. But if you define data source here Twitter, then it will go through this. So you have to be very careful while writing the code. You should not just do copy paste. You have to make these changes. Okay, so in my code, if I bring you here, so you can see all those details are there, and here my data source is Twitter, and everything else is same. So I have modified my event hub names and keys and then Twitter keys. After doing this, you have to just click on run all. That's it. You go to command, it's running right now. If you come down, you will see getting an execution context. Don't worry about these things because I had already run, so you will see these things, but it will start fetching the new records now. It is going through getting an execution context, and then it will start running it. So give it a minute. So waiting to run, running command, and it will start sending new data now. And same time, so you can see it started sending the data right now. Okay, you can see all this data. Now I will not run it for long because as I told you, if you run it for long, you will be adding more cost to your resource just for demo purpose, right? So that's not needed. Before jumping further, let's see what happens here. Event Hub. Let's go to overview. Can you see here for the past hour, immediately you can see the spikes because just now the data started ingesting to Event Hub. Okay, so you can see this spike, that data is moving to Event Hub. It means it's working. That is the first test. There is one more thing I have done. I have made small change in the code, but that I will discuss towards the end. You can see that I have made these changes here. In the existing code, if you go, can you see this? It is sending the status.getText, but in my code, I am sending status.getText plus I am sending these two information, status.getUser get screen name and geolocation. So I'll talk about this also after completing the next notebook. So this is about first notebook, send tweets to Event Hub. Let's jump to next one, which is read from Event Hub. So now you have data on Event Hub. Now you have to read it. Okay, so Daya is asking, is it a batch process or continuous ingestion? I missed a part of the code that is enabling this. Okay, so this is a continuous ingestion, and Daya, the part that you missed right now, that again you can cover when the recording will be available. I'll make the recording available in just a couple of days, so you can go through that again, and you can cover that part because there are many things that I mentioned, so I don't want you to miss again. And Kai is asking, can we have your two notebooks? Yeah, sure, Kai. So I'll make sure that I attach even these two notebooks along with my video. Okay, so this is one thing. Yeah. So now we are coming to the next notebook, which is read from Event Hub. So now we have data available on Event Hub. We have to read it from there, right? So for reading, first of all, we need a logical thing, like what we need to do. First thing, again in this notebook, we need to connect to Event Hub because we are going to read data from Event Hub, right? For that, again, we need to pass the same details that I passed for the previous one. Now, here we are doing nothing with Twitter. Twitter work is done. We are dealing only with Event Hub right now, right? So this one will read the data and it will try to print the data here. Let's see. Right now I have stopped the input, so it might not run. And there is one more thing. You can uh, click on run all. It will run all the codes, all bits and pieces in this particular notebook altogether, right? But I would go ahead with this step-by-step process here. You can select for run cell, and you will see it will start again getting an execution context. So when you try to run all these codes, this takes some time, like 1 minute or something, but it will start giving you the result. Now it is running command, and you can see it is giving the result now. Now because okay, this is batch zero, and you don't see anything coming up because right now my source is stopped. Right now nothing is being streamed, right? So what I will do, I will go back and I will start it again. So the moment I'll start it again, let it start the processing. It is running command. Let's go back to from Event Hub, and you will see here the moment I started the source again, you can see it started reading the data. Now you can see it's not in a readable format. It is reading something, but it's not in readable format. So our next job is to bring it in readable format. Okay, so what I will do, I will stop running this, stop execution, and let's go to next step. Now this will define the schema, okay, based on the message that you are sending. So again, run this. And again, this entire code, as I said, I am again picking from this one. So you can go here, read tweets from Event Hubs. Although I have made some small changes, but the base is this, right? So you can see it's all the codes are available here. So you can go to this URL. So yeah, so this is done. It printed the schema. So we are good. Sorry, it printed the schema. This is the third step. Okay. Now, next one, we are going to define some uh, classes which will be used from cognitive services, right? So request to text API, request to text API document. So these things will be used for sentiment analysis. So let's initiate these things. So just run the cell. This will be done quickly. Oh, sorry, I need to. Yeah, this thing you have to be careful with. Sometimes you will see that this piece of code is like waiting to run, waiting to run. It means the previous code is still running. So we need to go and cancel it. If you don't cancel, the next code will not run. Now see, the moment I stop that, this completed running. Okay, so now this piece is actually where it is doing all the sentiment analysis, and you can see here you have access key, host for cognitive services. If you remember, we have taken the access key and name for the cognitive services that we created. So we are using those keys here to connect to cognitive services. So I have not made any change in this particular code. Okay, this one is completed. Now it is converting to, this piece will convert it to sentiments. So run it again. This is done. Now this piece will create streaming data frame. Okay, and from here you have to understand this, that it is defining the path, DBFS output path. So this particular piece of code will try to bring in this data now to Databricks. Now in Databricks, where it will bring. So Databricks has its own file system called Databricks file system, DBFS. Okay, and you can see this, and I'll show you where you can see. So there is output path here. It will try to go and create output path and checkpoint path there, and where you will be able to see the data. But I will not show you this one. Let me complete next steps and then I will show you where actually you will be able to see the data on Databricks. Okay, so let's run this part. Okay, Spark Jobs. Okay, so this is done. I'll go ahead and cancel it. I don't want to keep it running. Okay, done. Now you see here, you will see a difference here. There's percent Python. It means at any point of time, although I was running Scala code all this while, at this point of time, I'll change it to Python. Why? Because I wanted to read this Parquet file. This has created a Parquet file in DBFS, in Databricks file system. I want to read that Parquet file in this particular variable called data. And then I will display the data that what is this data actually. So let's try to run this cell. The previous data that you showed because of my previous run, this time it is running fresh, so you will be able to see fresh data. Okay, so you can see this data coming in here. Okay, you can see different types of data now. For example, you can see all the tweets here, right? So you can see all these tweets and then you can see the sentiment analysis side by side. So for example, this one, no one likes updating, but it's necessary, right? Not with Azure SQL Database managed instance, and it is saying 0.8. And looking forward to collaborating with like-minded people. We are software solutions provider, something, and again this is 0.9. So it means sentiment like positive sentiment or like negative sentiment. So based on the tweet, it will try to find out what is the sentiment. Like thanks to everyone who turned out in our very first meetup for Azure Center. If you missed, you can catch up. So sometimes based on the words, it can misread it. So it's not like 100% that whatever sentiment analysis it is giving is like 100% correct, but it tries to fetch based on the words or the phrases that you are using in your tweets. Based on that, it tries to create sentiment analysis. Okay, so sometimes it will be very upfront, like something is very good and it will give you a very clear picture that whether this is positive or negative, but not every time. Okay, so you can read these tweets and then you can compare like how it is responding. Now next one is, again, as I said in the previous code, when I typed percent Python, it changed this notebook to Python, means I can write my Python code here. Now here I'm changing it to SQL. So actually I can write my SQL code here. So this is actually Spark SQL, right? And this one is actually PySpark. So Spark SQL, I am dropping this table because I already have this table created. So I need to drop, otherwise it will create error in the next step. You don't need to perform this step if you're doing it for the first time. Now next one is again SQL, where I'm creating a table using DBFS output path. And where is output path? That's a Databricks file system. So this output path is in Databricks, and we are creating a sentiment demo table using this Parquet files available on output path. So let's run this cell. So it is completed, table is created, and now we have to check the data. So let's run it. Okay, so you can see this data. There are some weird data that you see on top because I had run it earlier with different connection strings, like different commands. But later, if you see after few uh, tweets, you see these things are coming straight like a tweet. There are again certain things that I would highlight in a couple of minutes. Like you can see here, it is coming null at the rate, LL at the rate. Then here is the tweet. This is the real tweet. and then again it is @uu@mst community. Okay, so I will talk about it in couple of minutes, that why it is coming like this. There is one more thing that I would like to bring to your notice. If you go through Microsoft documentation, they cover only till this part. So let's check this. Okay, so this is the last step that they show. Streaming data frame, write stream, output mode. Okay, and this is the one, sorry. So this is the code where it ends. Okay, after that, they are not talking about this. Just 1 second. Streaming data frame. Yeah, so you see the streaming data frame, and then write stream, I have made the modification. So this was output mode where it will just send the output directly on Databricks platform. Okay, and then because I didn't want to send it directly on this, I wanted to store it somewhere so that I can leverage this output in Power BI dashboard while creating Power BI dashboard. That's why I changed this code here. Okay, this part is modified, and then these parts are like these codes are not available in Microsoft documentation, so you can leverage these codes if you also want to plot these dashboards on Power BI. Okay, so this is the demo part. This is Databricks part. So we are done with this. Now, before jumping to Power BI, I wanted to talk about these tweets, that what are these @LL @UU. This is actually a kind of very random way that I have utilized to read the tweets and append location and the screen name and the username of the Twitter. Okay, so what I have done actually, let's go to our first notebook. Okay, so in my first notebook, as I was telling you guys that in Microsoft documentation they are showing status.getText, it will send you only the text. But if you are capturing only text, okay, what uh, if you are capturing only the text part, then what actually benefit do you get for the dashboard? Mainly, you will be able to tell, okay, these many people were positive and these many people were negative about maybe any for any product, right? But we will not be able to judge any further on that data if we are just getting the text and we are calculating sentiment analysis on that. So what I tried to do, I tried to figure out the location of the particular user and the username so that I can find out basically which user is more active in that community and from which location I am getting bad feedback or positive feedback, right? So that's how I'll be able to build a meaningful dashboard for any user, right? So for that reason, I modified this particular part where I'm getting location and then I'm getting screen name. And I have used this thing, this is not ideal way to do this, but I've used it in a very simple way so that I can use this particular part and this particular part as a delimiter on Power BI. It, you are completely free to use the way you want. If you are very much comfortable with Scala, you can make the changes accordingly and then you can bring this data to Power BI and then you can leverage it the way you want. But I wanted to keep it simple so that I can just use these two strings as delimiter and then I can extract username and location. One more thing that you need to know when you are playing with Twitter data, that until one user has enabled location information, you will not be able to capture location. So you have to be careful with that. Okay, so most of the time, if you see, let's go to the output that I was showing you. Okay, so if you go to this output, many times you will find null. Okay, although I am capturing location here, but it is passing null. So null is actually location because that particular user has not enabled the location, so you are getting it null. And @UU means username like Powerman forever. So this is the Twitter account who is tweeting about this. So I can use at least username information and location information, not in this case because I have null, but many users are there who keep it enabled, so no problem. So in that case, you will be able to create a dashboard based on location and username. Okay, so this is what I wanted to cover. Now let's go to Power BI. So this is a Power BI dashboard, and give me 1 second. I wanted to show you one more thing. Okay, I have closed it. I will try to add one more URL which is related to Twitter library that we are adding. So you can search for that library and you can find out what all information you can capture from using that library. Like I am capturing right now username, location. That way you can capture many other information, but you need to search for that library that you are using. So, and when I say library, it's this library. So this library is there, right? So you can go to this library to check what all kind of actions you can do, what all APIs you can use using this library, right? So right now I have used username and location. So username is not available. So I have used screen name. Okay, so you see here screen name, right? So get screen name. So you need to go through that library, then you will be able to find it out. Okay, so that's it. And now let's come to Power BI. I don't know if you guys have worked on Power BI, but it's easy to download. You can just search on Google or Bing or any search engine. Power BI, just search for Power BI desktop version download. And this is a free tool to download. You can click on downloads. Okay. And this is Power BI mobile and other things, but you can just go to download the tool. 1 second, they have changed this UI. Oh yeah, here it is. Microsoft Power BI desktop, and you can go to download. This will download the app, but you can go to this advanced option and you can download it from here. So I would recommend to go ahead with this advanced option and download this. So this will, you will be able to download Power BI desktop version. This is free. You don't have to pay anything for that until you plan to go to premium version. So there are benefits for premium version. I will take another session on Power BI. So there I will talk about premium version and free version, all those things. So let's go to Power BI, and you can see I was able to bring in this data here. This is the same data. Now, what is the guarantee that this is the data, right? Like how we are bringing the data here. For that, we need to go to get data and click on more. And then search for Spark. Okay, you will get here Spark. You will get Azure SD inside Spark and Spark. Don't go for Azure SD inside Spark because that is IaaS, infrastructure as a service. That is actually Hadoop system available on Azure platform, which is actually SD inside Spark cluster. So you select Spark, then click on connect. When you will click on connect, it will ask you server name, it will ask you protocol. You can go to HTTP and you can click on OK. Now what is this server? So for this, again we need to go back to Databricks. So go to Databricks, and on this top right corner you see there is this user. Go to user settings. Okay, and 1 second. First of all, you needed to go there. Just one moment. You can create one token here, but before that I wanted to show you the server. Okay, so let me take you this. Okay, so I'll click on this, click on OK, and then it will ask you for username password. Now this is also very important to notice that username in this case will not be the username that you'll use for login to Azure account and all. In this case, username is token. Remember this, anybody, whoever is trying to connect to Databricks, the username is token, that is fixed. And password is going to be this token that you generate. Okay, you can go and create on this. You can define the timeline for this. Okay, and your new token will be created. So let me try to create a new one, test one. Let's keep it for 1 day, generate, and this is the key. Your token has been created successfully. Okay, so this is the test one, and then you can go to Power BI, you can paste this and click on connect. Okay, so I have already connected, so I will not do that. And once you are done with that, you will see data coming up here, and then based on that I have created this Power BI dashboard. So this one is tabular format where I am just using normally the username, tweet, and sentiment. Okay, so you can see the actual tweets, you can see the username who has created this tweet, and you can see the sentiment analysis. Now this is one thing for any product. If you want to understand what is the output, like whether the sentiment is positive or negative, then based on that you can select this one. You can create this pie chart. So this gives like poor, so this sentiment value is poor, like most of the people are saying it's poor, right? And then tweet counts per user, so you can see this particular user has highest number of tweets, which is 11, then 9, like that. So you can create all these tweets, and then you can publish it. You can go to publish, save it. For that you need to be logged in first. So I am logged in with my account prashant@azuredataplatform.com. You can click on publish. If you have powerbi.com associated with your account, then this will pop up my workspace. If it is not there, then it will ask you to create one. So for that you can just go to powerbi.com, and in case if you don't have, it will ask you to start free, or else you can sign in if you already have one. Okay, so once I'll select on this, it will try to publish it. Okay, I already have one, I don't want to change it, so cancel. So once it will publish it here, you will be able to see those things available here under my workspace. So you will not see anything in dashboard, you will see in reports. You can click on this report, and you can see the same report has come to powerbi.com now. Okay, so now your data which is coming from Twitter, we are performing sentiment analysis on Databricks, which is online, and then we are bringing a dashboard related to that sentiment analysis on powerbi.com, not on Power BI desktop version. So everything is online now. Okay, so easy approach. You have everything available now, and you can actually schedule refresh also for this. Okay, you can go to again my workspace, go to datasets. Okay, and you can click on this. You can enter credentials again same way and go for schedule refresh. So once you will enter the credential, it will ask you to keep your data up to date, and then you can define the frequency. So that way your streaming data which is coming through Twitter to your Databricks to Power BI, you don't have to do anything manually. Everything is up and running, and you will be able to see a live dashboard running here. But keep in mind, if you leave your cluster running, if you keep all these things running, it is going to cost you huge, so be careful with that. And on that note, I am going to stop the session. In case if you have any question, let me know. So Daya is asking like what is Parquet? So Parquet is actually columnarized file structure. that you can read. Like normally they use in big data form because it is it gives you fast performance. It is uh, kind of, if you know about column store index, it is like columnarized. Similar way, these Parquet files are columnarized, so it has a better compression rate. So it uh, it helps you in processing the data faster. So you can read in more detail about it, but yeah, this is the overview of this. So any other question, guys? Okay, Kai is asking. That's a very interesting question. Uh, how to decide to use Databricks, right? That's a very good question, and most of the time, actually, customers also raise this question in front of us, that why to use Databricks, first of all. First thing is customer using any existing on-premise uh, Spark cluster. That is one thing. If they are not using anything, and if they are using, first of all, if they are using any on-premise Spark cluster, then we can recommend them to come to Azure. Now, even if they are coming to Azure, there are two options. They can go with Databricks, or they can go with HD Insight Spark cluster. The difference is Spark cluster is not uh, full managed service by Azure, right? That is infrastructure as a service. So you have to take care of all the, you have to manage the cluster, right? And because you are going to provision a cluster, the cost will be little higher if you are running it like all the time. If you are going to use Databricks, then one benefit you get is of auto scaling. Second benefit, you have your notebooks, you have your scheduling option there. So once the schedule comes, like when the schedule has come and when uh, any particular job has to run, that time the Databricks cluster will become available. It will run the job, and again it will auto terminate after a certain time that you have defined while creating the cluster. So these benefits people get while bringing it to Databricks. But there are some challenges when you bring it to Databricks. One thing, one customer I know, they had written their code in Python and they wanted to come to Databricks. But if you come to Databricks, you will have to change your Python code to PySpark. So that's an overhead that everybody is not willing to go for it. Okay, so in that particular case, you can ask them to go ahead with HD Insight Spark cluster. But if they are okay with converting to PySpark, then there is no problem. You can recommend Databricks because it will save their cost. It will help them in doing like versioning also. As I was showing the notebooks, actually you can go back to the notebooks to the previous version or all the things. You can see a revision history. So you can see all the changes from the beginning, whatever I have made. And you can select anything and you can say that, okay, um, revert these changes back to this particular version. So these features are really super cool, and you don't have to worry about anything lost or anything. So you can ask the customer to come to Databricks. But if the customer has this concern of like transferring the code to PySpark and all, then it's difficult. Another thing, if the customer is going to leverage Spark or Kafka for the first time, then one thing that I suggest normally to the customer, that don't go for Kafka cluster, go for Event Hub, because Event Hub also gives you almost the same throughput, right? And that is PaaS, platform as a service again. So you can use Event Hub for streaming the data, and then you can use uh, Databricks for writing a Spark code, like whatever you want to use, like whether you want to use Scala, you want to use Python, SQL, you have the flexibility to choose your own code that you want to use, right? So that way you can suggest the customer to go ahead with Databricks, even if they are coming for the first time. The biggest benefit that they get is the cost, because anytime they can go and terminate. And second one is auto scaling. They have the option, like they can define the minimum number of workers, maximum number of workers, and based on the demand, it will auto scale. But before suggesting any customer, keep this in mind. In case if there is a requirement for GPU cluster, then be very much clear with that, because sometimes GPU clusters require 30 cores or even more than that. right? And as I mentioned, that there's a limitation for a particular subscription and a particular region to have not more than 20 cores. And if you are going beyond that, you need to raise a request to Microsoft team. Although they respond quickly, quickly in the sense not like immediately, but it takes sometimes 2 3 days. But you have to be very careful if you are suggesting to the customer. In case if your requirement is using GPU cluster, then be careful with that. It may take some time. Okay, so this is about Databricks. So any other question? I hope I answered your question, Khan. Okay, so Daya is asking one question, and okay, Kha has also asked one question. So I'll come back to you, Kha. Let's see what Daya is asking. Is there a way to build a family dashboard that shows kids' sentiments, teacher sentiments, family friend sentiments, financial sentiments with feeds from Facebook, tweet, online banking, and feeds of bills from various companies? Is such solution already available? We would have to build one. So, as per my knowledge, this kind of solution is not available. Maybe somebody would have built it for their personal use or something. I'm not sure. But definitely you can do that. Most of the data, like right now, I gave example of Twitter. Maybe you will need to figure out how you can connect it with Facebook. And I'm not sure if you'll be able to gather banking related data because that will be super secret. But at least Facebook and Twitter data you will be able to extract, and based on that, maybe you will be able to do some sentiment analysis. But once again, why we are using Twitter analysis? Because they use hashtags and it becomes easier. But on Facebook, uh, hashtags do not work that way. It's a different functionality altogether, right? On Twitter, you can reach out to a certain target audience based on hashtag, but not on Facebook. So I'm not sure if that will work, but definitely you can give it a try. And Kai is asking if machine learning is as Azure ML as good as Databricks. So these two are different services, Kai. Like Azure ML, you can use to build your own model, and you have a data, and you are just building your model uh, using Azure ML services. And Databricks is actually Spark cluster, and uh, you are creating a notebook to run a code or run your application against a data, against a streaming data or whatever, right? So you can definitely have a notebook. You can use notebook in a similar fashion as Azure ML, but as you saw that even if you are going to use notebook, you needed to create a cognitive services, which is nothing but uh, part of machine learning, right? You need to create cognitive services underneath. So if your requirement is just to create a model, my recommendation would be just go ahead with Azure ML. You don't need to go to Databricks in that case. So I think we are good at this point, and thank you guys. Thanks for joining. And as I already mentioned that in another couple of days, this video will be available on azuredataplatform.com. So you can watch the video. I will add the notebooks also here. You will be able to download the way you can see here, download option. You'll be able to download even the notebook. But the notebook will not be exactly in the same way. It will be one single notebook. So I will try to put a mark where you have to break the lines. So make sure that you break the lines from there and then use the code. Don't try to just copy paste as it is. Because if I'm using a line somewhere as a marking, then that will throw error. So make sure that you remove those things and use separately. So thank you everyone. Hope to see you next week again.